Simply Cooking by MmmChef is brought to you in part by CPI Interiors. A great kitchen starts with a great design. Get that custom home interior you dream of. At CPI Interiors, we listen and beautiful happens.
Hi, welcome to Simply Cooking by MmmChef. I'm Daniela Croco, and I'm a holistic chef. I take traditional and classic recipes and turn them into nutrient-dense and simple eats. I'm going to show you how taking a few simple cooking tools from your kitchen can create an amazing meal. Stay tuned. Are you in a rush, or is your kitchen under renovation? Or perhaps you're a student and you only have a small little kitchenette or just a hot pot to cook on? I'm going to show you how we can create a great meal using just one pot. I'll have a couple extra little kitchen tools to use as well, but really you only need one pot, a cutting board, a knife, and some yummy ingredients. I've got a pot of boiling water going already, which I'm going to add some salt to get that seawater flavor before I add my pasta noodles. Today we're going to be making something that I like to call my beefy cheesy mac. I've got these really nice gluten-free brown rice noodles, but of course you can use whatever noodles that you like. You can use regular pasta noodles, you can use rice pasta noodles, you can even use rice or quinoa. Your options are endless. Now I'm going to let the pasta cook. Oops. And while I let the pasta cook, I'm going to turn that down to a simmer. And I'm going to get my ingredients ready for the delicious part of the meal. I love to start everything with onion and garlic. And also being a one-pot meal, it also needs to be economical. Onion and garlic are something I always have on hand, and they're very affordable. We're going to be using beef, but you can use any sort of ground meat that you like. And we're going to be using some frozen peas. But again, you can use any type of frozen veggies you might have on hand, a canned vegetable, or really anything. Or you can leave it out completely. I'm going to chop up this onion and this garlic and leave it to the side. Oh, but actually, I have these sunflower seeds that I'm going to be using for the creamy sauce, and I should actually get them on soaking so that they can be soaked and ready to blend before everything else comes together. Just going to use 2 cups of sunflower seeds, and this is going to be enough to make 4 meals. So I'm going to eat it tonight, but I'm going to have leftovers to last me the next few days. Now that my sunflower seeds are soaking, I'm just going to set them to the side and use them later on. I'm going to get back to chopping my onion for my main course. Now, I'm a trained chef and I went to culinary school and learned French training. But then I had all these wonderful clients who wanted to learn about healthy eating and perhaps had a dietary restriction or maybe were newly diagnosed with something like celiac or diabetes. And they really wanted me to help them cook for that. And I didn't have much knowledge. So I decided to go back to school and take a holistic nutrition program so that I could blend not only my cooking experience with nutrition and create meals that were not only delicious, but also helped my clients feel their best. That's why I choose to do most of my cooking gluten-free and dairy-free. But of course, whatever ingredients that your family and that you love the most is what I suggest you use. Oh, it's making me teary-eyed, reminiscing about my clients. Or it's just the onion. All right, now my onion and garlic is chopped. I'm just going to set this to the side and check my pasta. It needs a few more minutes. I'm going to strain the pasta and rinse it really, really well. Because it's a gluten-free pasta and it's made out of brown rice, a traditional real Italian pasta would never be rinsed. You want to keep the starch on the outside of the noodles so that it can hold on to the sauce. But for gluten-free noodles, we really like to rinse them well in cold water, and that way they don't stick together, and then they act more like a real pasta. I'm undercooking this just a little bit to al dente because once it's rinsed and I've got the sauce cooked, I'm going to put it back in the pot and put it all together, and the pasta is going to soak up a little bit of the moisture from the sauce. So we'll see you after the break, after I strain and rinse this and get everything ready to make my sauce. See you soon.
This program is brought to you in part by CPI Interiors, designing customized home spaces for all tastes and budgets for over 20 years. At CPI Interiors, we listen and beautiful happens.
Now that I've had a good cry from my onions, I'm ready to go. I've got my pot that I boiled my pasta in. The pasta's in the sink, drained, and I've just given it a really nice rinse with cold water so that it won't stick together, and it's waiting for me when I'm ready for it. I'm gonna turn my pot back on so that it can get nice and hot. I'm gonna add some olive oil to the pan and let that get hot. This is a take on a mac and cheese, but as we know, I take everything that's traditional and turn it into something better, in my opinion. So we're doing a sunflower seed based cream sauce. Most people would use cashews, or you can even use like silken tofu or something like that. But I like to use sunflower seeds because they're economical, they're much more affordable than a cashew. And I find that soaking them, you only really need about 20 minutes to soak them and they're ready to blend. I have a high-powered blender that I'm going to use for that. But if you don't have a high-powered blender, I definitely just suggest that maybe you could soak your sunflower seeds a little bit longer. Or a secret trick is to pour boiling water over the seeds and then have them soak in hot water, which will reduce the soaking time by half or even more. All right. Now my pan's nice and hot, so I'm gonna add the onion and the garlic. Oh, that's the sizzle that I'm looking for. And just like we season the water, I like to season every layer of flavor. So I'm gonna season the onion and garlic. Not only does the salt add flavor, but it also helps the onion and garlic to sweat out. It actually draws moisture out of things. So that's why you don't add salt to sauteing mushrooms, because they'll end up all mushy. But for onions and garlic and peppers and things like that, the salt really helps to caramelize. All right. Just gonna let that get all yummy. Great. Okay, I'm going to grab my ground beef from the fridge and see what else I've got. I've got my grass-fed ground beef, and it's actually leftovers from another meal that I made the other night, and some mustard is gonna add some great flavor. I can see my onions and garlic starting to get translucent, and that's what I was talking about when I meant sweating it out. You can now see that they're all super moist and they're starting to go a little bit clear. I'm just gonna make some space in the pot so that I can add the ground beef. Come on, get out of there. There we go. Break that up with my spoon really, really well. So with a one-pot meal, I chose to do pasta because it's something I know, and ground beef or ground meat is something that most people usually have on hand. I'm using a stove with a beautiful pot, but of course, if you have an instant pot or a slow cooker, you could use that as well. It may take a little bit longer, but it'll work the same. You could also use pre-cooked grains and then just do this in like a frying pan and then mix everything together in a bowl at the end. I've had many clients hire me over the years when their kitchen was under renovation, and I've had to go into a kitchen and use like an induction burner on the stove because the stove was taken out, or perhaps had to cook out of a cooler because the fridge was getting replaced. So I've had a lot of experience figuring out how to make things quickly, economically, and with as little dishes as possible, because sometimes when those kitchens are under renovations, there's no dishwasher. And after cooking a week's worth of meals for a family of 5, a dishwasher really helps. So doing one-pot meals really help to reduce the time that I stand in front of the sink with my hands in water. All right, now that the beef is getting all nice and cooked, I'm going to drain my sunflower seeds for my sauce. All right, now my sunflower seeds are drained, and I'm going to grab my blender. Now, at this point, if you were not in a rush or you had a bunch of other things in your fridge happening, you could add them in at this time. I just like to add salt, but if you had like paprika or onion powder or garlic powder, or if you were spicy, you could add some chili flakes. You could also cut up some hot peppers and add them in at this point, or if you had maybe some leftover diced tomatoes, or maybe some tomatoes that were going a little bit soft, now would be a great time to chop those up and add them into the pan. I'm just going to stick with my traditional version, but definitely don't be shy to spice it up. I'm going to put these sunflower seeds in my blender, and every cheese sauce has a little bit of a tang. So just like for my Caesar salad dressing, I'm going to add some lemon juice to give you that tang that a cheese sauce would typically have. I like to squeeze a lemon over my fingers and kind of open my fingers a little bit, and then I catch all the seeds and none of the seeds go inside. Excellent. And then I have that nutritional yeast. Nutritional yeast is an inactive yeast, and it is usually fortified with vitamins and minerals and B12, which a lot of plant-based eaters aren't able to get from their regular diet. So nutritional yeast is a great way to get extra B12, but I like to use it because it tastes very cheesy and it almost imparts a Parmesan type flavor. So I like to do equal parts sunflower seeds, equal parts nutritional yeast. And then garlic. I mean, we have to have garlic, of course. I'm going to use 2 whole cloves of garlic. I like to smash them because it helps the peel come off really easily. Let me move this out of the way. Oh, I'm going to give this a stir. Listen to that sizzle. It's one of my favorite sounds. Of course, besides when people say, My second clove of garlic into the blender. Clean this up. And then I'm going to add a little dollop of Dijon mustard, which is going to give it a really nice flavor. Oh, I guess I left my spoon over here. There we go. And I'm going to add a little bit of olive oil. I find that sunflower seeds are much less fatty than a cashew, so I definitely like the mouthfeel of adding a little bit of fat into the sauce. Maybe about a tablespoon. And then, of course, some salt. 1, 2 nice big pinches. This is almost ready. I'm going to turn that down. You know what, actually? I also have some leftover spinach that I think is wilting away. I used it the other night when I used the other half of this ground beef. So I think I'm going to grab that right now and add that in. My spinach is a little wilty. And everyone has great intentions to make green smoothies all week, but I know a lot of you let your spinach kind of go bad. When it goes bad, sometimes I put it into a Ziploc bag and into the freezer so that I can just throw it into a recipe or into a smoothie. But if I catch it, like today, right before it's about to go really bad, it's great to add into a fry pan or a saute of some kind. I'm going to saute it in with this. But you could also add it to something like a stir fry, or just saute some onion and garlic and add the spinach in to cook, and it's a great side dish as well. When I come home from the grocery store, I take a little bit of time and I clean my vegetables, chop onion and garlic in my food processor and put it into a jar, and make sure that all my greens are washed and cleaned and packed properly, so that during the week when I am in a rush and on the go, I don't have to worry about taking the extra time to wash and dry and organize everything. I can just grab things and they're ready for me. Awesome, look at that. Now, along with the nutritional yeast and the sunflower seeds, the lemon, the garlic, the salt, and the Dijon, I need some moisture in here. So I'm going to fill the blender up with water up until right above the seeds and the flavor because I want it to come to a nice creamy texture. All right. I've done this with ground chicken before, and instead of using the sunflower seed sauce, I've put in a nice can of diced tomatoes, and it creates more like of an Italian tomato type dish. It's great. Excellent. I'm going to fill this up with water, clean up my station, get the ingredients together for my next steps. I've got peas in the freezer, and I think I'm going to give a little look in my fridge to see what type of herbs I have that might be going bad as well. I've always got things like parsley and mint and oregano and rosemary and things like that, and I use a little bit in recipes here and there, and then by the end of the week I have all these leftover herbs. So I think I'm going to get that together as well because it will add some great flavor. We'll see you after the break. While we were on the break, I blended my sauce and it's all really nice and smooth, and I'm gonna add it to my pot. My beef is all cooked through, and my onions and garlic are super translucent, and my spinach has cooked down completely. Look at that creaminess that those sunflower seeds give. Want to get every last little drop out. Don't want to miss any of it. All right. Now I'm going to let the sauce just heat up a little bit and come up to temperature before I add the pasta noodles back into the pot. All right, I was talking about herbs before we left. I found some in the fridge. I have some parsley, I have some baby arugula, and I have some fresh basil. I'm going to chop those up and leave them to the side to add at the top after. I've got some chili flakes, and whenever I have crackers or pretzels or anything like that, like little ends of breads and things like that, I actually save them and I turn them into breadcrumbs. And then I have all these jars of breadcrumbs that I use to turn into crispy toppings and breadings and things like that for other recipes. I really don't like to waste anything. Let me just grab the pasta from the sink to add it back into the pot. All right, our noodles are all a little bit al dente. And now that the sauce is heating up, they're going to soak up a little bit of the liquid and get themselves to fully cooked. Listen to that creamy sound. Can you hear it? All right, I'm just gonna let that get nice and hot. I'm going to chop up these herbs. Of course, you can use dried herbs or you don't have to use any herbs at all, but I love fresh herbs, and to me, taking a simple meal with very simple ingredients and things that you're used to eating all the time, like what's in this pot, can really be brought to a whole different level and to a whole different flavor town than not adding fresh herbs at all. Excellent. And the baby arugulas are already nice and baby, so I'm not going to chop them. I'm just going to leave them to the side. And I've got the breadcrumbs here. I think these are breadcrumbs that I made out of seed crackers. I can smell the sesame seeds in there. I'm going to add some to the bowl there. And I'm going to add a couple chili flakes to that. And some salt, because I like to layer every layer with flavor. And a little bit of that nutritional yeast, so as if I was adding Parmesan to my crispy topping. Excellent. I can hear this sizzling, so I'm just going to give it a nice stir. All right, mix that together. And now I'm gonna drizzle some olive oil in and stir because it's gonna help it become crispy. Excellent. Now it's like a crispy breadcrumb topping, but really healthy because it's made out of seed crackers. Yum, I'm gonna put that to the side. All right, and now I'm gonna go and grab my frozen peas. As I talked about before, you can really use any frozen vegetables that you like, but I always have frozen peas on hand. I love to throw them into salads, into soup, into a pasta dish. They're really great to have and they're really affordable too. All right, peas are still frozen, so we're gonna let them cook in the pot a little bit. I'm gonna turn the heat up just a little bit right before I add the peas in so that they can defrost in the pan. And what the heck, we'll just put them all in. The more peas, the more meal, and the more leftovers I'll have for another night. Excellent. Now, while that's getting nice and hot, I'm going to grab a plate so that I can plate it and give it a taste. Oh, I can hear it sizzling, so I'm just going to give that a good stir. Now I'm going to add the fresh herbs. This looks so yummy. I can see the steam starting to come off the pot, which means that the peas are getting nice and defrosted and everything's heating through evenly. This is one of my favorite pots. It's a cast iron pot and it really holds the temperature really well. It doesn't cool down really fast and it takes a little bit longer to heat up than a traditional pan, but what it does once it's hot is it really holds in the heat like it's an oven, so things cook quicker and more evenly, which is really, really nice, especially if you're in a rush or if you don't have a lot of kitchen equipment. So if I was gonna say to have one pot, to spend a little bit of extra money and get yourself a lovely heavy bottomed, maybe cast iron and sealed pot like this one. Excellent. Okay, I'm gonna turn this heat off now because I think it's pretty hot. Can you see the steam coming off of that? I can. All right, now, there's a couple things you can do. You can take the breadcrumbs and you can sprinkle it on top of the pot right in there, and then you could turn on the oven if you have an oven while your kitchen's under reno or whatever situation you might be in, and then you can put this in the oven and you can let it get crispy on top. But I don't really care about that. I just love the flavor of the crispy topping. So I'm gonna grab a spoon to plate this and I'm just gonna add that on top raw. My husband's not that big of a fan of the crispy topping, so that's why I like to leave mine off, and then I add my own when I go to eat it. Yum, that looks so good. And it was so easy to make, and it was made from things that I already had in the back of my pantry, and all we did was dirty one pot, one knife, one bowl for these breadcrumbs, and my blender and my strainer. Now, of course, you don't even need to dirty that many dishes. I could have strained the pasta right from the pot using the lid. I could have blended my sunflower seed. I could have not used sunflower seeds, sorry, and I could have used coconut milk instead of the creaminess of the sunflower seed and mix that in a bowl so that you don't even need to use a blender. And I could have even used pre-cooked grains. So if I had some leftover quinoa or some leftover rice or something like that in the fridge, that would have worked well and I wouldn't have even had to boil any pasta. All right. Look at that crispy topping. Yummy. Now this is a little bit out of the ordinary, but I love a little bit of zing and pizzazz at the end of a meal, kind of like a clean mouth flavor after you swallow your first bite. It's like, what is that? I really love to add a little squeeze of lemon to creamy sauces and things like that. It really gives it a je ne sais quoi. And look at that. I didn't squeeze the lemon over my fingers and I got 2 lemon seeds on the plate. Let me take those off. There we go. All right, let me grab a fork. Got to give this a taste. The crispy topping, the creamy pasta. Look, you don't need a lot of expensive or complicated kitchen equipment to make a delicious and nutritious simple meal. So easy.